What's up, everybody? Ryan Turford, the man on the moose here, and today we're grabbing our fighting sticks, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time to talk about the Capcom Fighting Collection.
No power greater than X.
Now, before we get into this review of the Capcom Fighting Collection, I gotta preface a couple things real quick about me personally. I'm someone who loves fighting games. I've been playing fighting games, since I was 10 years old, and I'm an old man. So that's a really long time to be playing fighting games, and I've always loved them over the years, but I've always fallen into the kind of the middle tier, kind of between casual and hardcore fighting game fan, where I'll usually put a lot of time into fighting games, but I'll never usually put enough time into them to be, pro level or do anything like that. So just bear in mind that this review is coming from a place of someone who's more on the casual side of fighting games is what I would probably classify myself. I'm definitely closer to the casual side than the pro side. So just be aware everything I'm going to talk about in this review will be from that perspective. Let's break down what's in this collection because honestly, I think this is pretty rad and worth every dollar that you're going to spend on this. So first off, this is a collection of 10 arcade ports from classic Capcom fighting games, 5 of which are actually Darkstalkers titles. So we've got Darkstalkers The Night Warriors, Darkstalkers Revenge, Vampire Savior, The Lord of Vampire, as well as Vampire Hunter 2, Darkstalkers Revenge, and Vampire Savior 2, The Lord of Vampire. We've also got 5 additional titles, including Red Earth, Cyberbots, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Hyper Street Fighter 2, and Super Gem Fighter Mega Mix. So each of these titles are ported lovingly to the consoles in a really great way. I think that this port's actually really well done of these games. And we're getting some great games returning here as well. First off, if you're a Darkstalkers fan at all, I'm going to just say this right now, this collection's a slam dunk for you because it contains the 5 kind of core Darkstalkers games that we know about from the arcades. So you'll be able to revisit all those memories of playing the Darkstalkers games from back in the day, especially too, because a lot of them we didn't get every single game in this collection in North America. And even when we did, they were just harder to find. So let's break it down at least a little bit. So out of the Darkstalkers games, we got the first 3 here in North America, although with Vampire Savior, Lord of Vampire, it was released as Darkstalkers 3, and it was kind of in this weird amalgamation between the 2 Vampire Savior games and then Vampire Hunter 2. So in a way, this way we finally have all 3 of the original games preserved in their original arcade versions here to play. Although the caveat that comes along with that is the 2 sequels, so Vampire Hunter 2 and Savior 2, didn't receive North American localizations in this collection. So they are still in Japanese, which does kind of, suck at least a little bit. No pun intended, of course, because, Darkstalkers, vampires, whatnot. But I think that it's just great to see these here because they didn't come out in North America. They came out on consoles in Japan as well in Japanese arcades, but we never got them here in North America. So it's really cool to have them in this collection. And as far as the other titles outside of Darkstalkers, I actually think a lot of these were really surprising. So let's start with Red Earth because Red Earth is an interesting one. So Red Earth is a fantasy-themed fighting game where you pick one of 4 characters, and as you go through the arcade mode, you fight different kind of mythological creatures as you play through it, and it almost plays like an RPG with a fighting game system because your characters level up, they get new skills and abilities, and depending on what level your character is, will unlock new moves for your character. So I really, as someone who loves RPGs, I really loved playing Red Earth for the very first time because this did come to North American arcades, never came to consoles. This is the very first time this game has been on consoles at all. But not only that, but this is just a game I never played in the arcades. So I loved playing it for the first time in this collection. It was definitely a standout for me. Again, as someone who loves RPGs, but also just likes, fantasy games. I loved the idea behind this RPG style fighting game, and I thought it was a blast. I couldn't put it down. I thought it was great. As far as my other runner-up for standout for this collection, it's Cyberbots. I really enjoyed this one. I love, the Gundam anime series. I've loved, mech fighting games like the Gundam Battle Assault games on the PlayStation 1. And this one was super fun. Again, it's 2D fighting with mechs. You basically pick one of a selection of characters, and then you pick one of 9 different mechs from different manufacturers, and you battle it out in a really cool like sci-fi story. Like I really enjoyed the story mode in this and kind of playing as different characters and seeing the different sides of this conflict, which was really interesting, which is also something I love about the Gundam series in particular. Again, there's just a lot of comparisons between these two, which is why I'm comparing them so much. But it also even reminded me of playing like even games like Cyborg Justice back on the Sega Genesis, where you could, cut off your enemy's limbs and that would put them at a disadvantage. Like I really enjoyed this game. It did come to North America before in arcades, but this is the first time in North America this game's been on consoles. So I, again, really enjoyed this one as well. Another game, of course, that's in here is Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. This is the only non-fighting game that's in here because it is a puzzle game, although it kind of has that fighting game feel to it. But this one is the most familiar to me out of all the games in this collection because it's one that I've been able to play pretty recently because this is back from pack on Xbox One X and Series X. And I just really enjoyed playing it there, and playing this collection, again, just felt just as fun to me as playing those versions as well. But we've had a lot of different iterations of Puzzle Fighter 2, but it's just great to see it in another collection as well, just in another modern collection. I think it's a great addition. On top of that, we got an interesting addition in Hyper Street Fighter 2, which was originally a console game on PS2 and original Xbox, but then it received kind of like a slimmed down arcade port, which is what we got here, which allows you to play it's basically select what classic Street Fighter game you want to play, whether it's Street Fighter 2 or Turbo or Championship Edition or Super Street Fighter 2. And then from there, you're able to select the characters from that game. And then the game mechanics kind of match that depending on what you select. So it was a really interesting game. Again, I had never played this version of Street Fighter 2. But I think this is a solid addition to this collection. Although for me personally, I think it's probably my least favorite game in this collection, only because, again, we've had so many versions of Street Fighter 2. And while it is definitely a classic game, I did really enjoy revisiting Darkstalkers or the other games in this collection a lot more than this one. But again, if you're looking for like an all-encompassing version of Street Fighter 2 that has all the different versions of Street Fighter 2 in it, then I think, this is a great way to experience that as well. And then the last game in this collection, which also really surprised me because I had never played this game before as well, and this is Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix. So this basically takes the chibi style characters from Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, but then puts them into a fighting game with each other, which is all about collecting the gems from Puzzle Fighter, which allows you to power up your character, which then strengthens your special moves. And I really enjoyed this one as well. Not only that, but we also have one of the characters from Red Earth making an appearance here, which if I had played this game back in the day, I wouldn't have even known that was even a thing, because I wouldn't have known who's this sorceress character and where is she from. So I loved having her as an addition to the game. Also, we've got the Darkstalkers characters in here. I'm a Felicia character. I do love playing as Felicia in any fighting game she's in, whether it's Marvel vs. Capcom or even something like this. I thought she was a great addition to this cast. But then just the standard Street Fighter characters are great too. You've got Sakura, you've got Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li. You got a lot of great characters in this one as well. So I really enjoyed Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix. I think it's a really fun game as well. So beyond just the games themselves, which I think are all fun, as you can probably gauge that from the way I talked about each one, I also think there's a lot of great customization options for each game as well, because one of the things that, especially from a casual audience approaching a lot of these games, you'll find that a lot of these are actually fairly difficult because they were designed for arcades. Remember, like these aren't the console versions of these games, so they were built to have difficulty spikes into them and to kind of eat your quarters. Like that was kind of the whole thing with them. So what I love that they allowed you to do in this is totally tweak things like the difficulty, player damage, and give you a bunch of different options to customize these games to play the way you want them to play, or just how comfortable you feel jumping into some of these. Because likewise, if you really want to challenge, the games start at the 4-star difficulty. You can crank it all the way up to 10 and have like a really difficult experience if you want like a real challenge. So I really loved the customization that you go there. And also I found that even though I didn't start playing on the 4-star difficulty, I bumped it down to 3 or 2 to start with, just to get my head around some of these games, because I hadn't played either some of these games in years or just hadn't played them at all. And then I found as I got more and more comfortable with them, I would boost up to the difficulty where now I'm like a 5 or a 6 on a lot of these games and finishing them. So I really found myself getting better and better as I played to them. As much as I invested time into these arcade games, I found myself getting better and getting more experience and be able to tackle the tougher challenges that they had ahead of them. So I love that era of customization there, because I think, again, it'll really help bring in those who are, newer to these games, or someone who wants to learn the history of fighting games and learn the history of Capcom's fighting games besides just the Street Fighter lineage, and having just a great time with it. So I love this layer of customization here, and I think that it's actually a great move. And on top of all of that, there is a multiplayer suite available to you with rollback network code, which allows you to play these games pretty flawlessly online. Like I played on Xbox Series X, which is primarily where I played this collection, and just had a blast online. Picking up games with Darkstalkers or Red Earth against people was just super fun. I didn't really run into any lag issues or anything like that. And I think the rollback network code was definitely noticeable, and it definitely helped. Like I feel like playing online with these games felt like playing, on the couch with someone, which is the best thing I could say for this. So I actually had a blast with the online modes. I didn't really find there's too many reasons to come back to it, other than obviously to play against another person, because there's not a ton of incentives as far as, unlockables and things like that. But I don't think this game really needed a lot of that stuff anyways. Like I just really enjoyed the fact that you could go online with some of these games and just play them, just have a good time with it. I was, definitely getting my butt kicked, a bunch of times, but I also, kicked some butt other times as well. So I had a blast with the online modes for this game, and I think you will too. So if you were, at all worried about the online, I wouldn't be. I think it's super fun to check out. So overall, what do I think about this collection? Honestly, I think this collection is one of the best Capcom anniversary collections that we've had, not just across fighting games, but even across, things like the Mega Man collection or, the Disney Afternoon collection or things like that. Like I loved the games that were in this package, and I loved the presentation that they had on display here. You do have a bunch of extras as well that you can go into and go, listen to some of the music or preview some of the art. So I do think that there's a lot there to celebrate these games as well. And yeah, I think this collection is a slam dunk. If you like Darkstalkers, it's definitely a much easier sell. I mean, I think that it's a no-brainer. I would pick it up right away, and I would not have any reservations about doing so. However, if you're not in Darkstalkers, if you've played them before and you know that they're not your jam, but you're interested in trying out some of these games in this collection, I still think it's worth it, because I think it's a great package. And even if it was just the 5 games alone, I mean, this isn't a full price experience anyways, so I would probably feel comfortable even paying full price just for, Red Earth, Cyberbots, Super Puzzle Fighter, Hyper Street Fighter 2, and Super Gem Fighter Mega Mix. So I think that even then, I think it's still probably worth it. But obviously, at that point, then maybe you consider waiting for a sale on this one. But again, I think this collection is fantastic. It's one of the best legacy collections we've had in a long time, and I think it's going to be hard to top with Capcom with doing another legacy collection, and I'd love to see what they do next with this type of thing. But overall, I think this game is amazing, and I highly encourage y'all, if you're into fighting games, if you're looking to try out some long forgotten fighting games, or if you just missed a lot of these games in the past, you couldn't find a better place to start with the Capcom Fighting Collection. I think it's really fantastic. Well, that's going to do it for my review of the Capcom Fighting Collection. What do you think about this collection overall, and what are some of your favorite games from this collection? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you're watching on youtube.com/carpoolgaming, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't subscribed already, and ding, 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 ring that bell to be notified whenever we go live or whenever we put up new videos, because we got new stuff coming up pretty much almost every single day on this channel. So you're going to want to make sure you're notified whenever we got stuff coming in. If you're listening on audio feeds, of course, don't forget to rate this podcast or subscribe to the podcast network as well of your choice. Also, if you want all of our episodes a little bit early, or if you want some exclusives, head over to patreon.com/carpoolgaming. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You can find us on Twitter at Carpool Gaming. Well, that's it for my review of the Capcom Fighting Game Collection.